Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews of developers or interesting happenings in the world of Android. And now for this episode, here's your Spotlight. Let's move on to our Spotlight segment. And of course, we'll be talking with our guest, Stan Kruglik. Stan, welcome to episode 178. And we're so thankful that you've joined us today to talk about the app that we're looking at. And we're talking about Quickify, an app that I've done a little bit of a review about some weeks ago. And we're glad that you are here to talk about this app that I'm excited about. And we'll get started. And you tell us about it. When did you get started? Why? Of course, you have some of that in the app there as to why you got it started. But always, as a historian, I always like history about apps and everything else. So let's talk about the history of it. And by the way, how are you doing?
Yes, thanks, Karen. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm doing well. And actually, I realized that this is my first experience in a role of developer of Quickify. And I'm glad to be here and to present the history of my app, my plans, and so on.
So where are you located in Poland?
Yeah, I am living in Krakow. This is the second biggest city in Poland. I am living here with my wife, and currently it's 6 p.m. The weather is pretty good. It's 20 degrees, and it's a sunny day.
So let's talk about Quickify. And for those of you who haven't heard my little review of the app, of course, this is an app that's an inclusive app. In other words, does just about everything you're looking for, especially whether it comes to reading your RSS feeds or reading your books or documents and things like that. Stan, let's talk about the formats that this support, and then we'll talk about how I got to know you and how I give you that brutal review about accessibility on that app.
Yeah. So regarding the formats, like one of my goals was to support like as much as possible textual formats in the app, because one of the reasons why I started the project, I tired of switching between different reading apps. Because, for example, usually you have like one app for EPUBs, another app for PDFs, another app for the articles from the internet and RSS. And the goal was to build like one universal ultimate app which support at least all my formats which I'm mostly using. And it seems I done a pretty good job. I had support in my app almost like all popular formats like EPUB, FB2, TXT, HTML, and PDFs. And actually, I found it very, very convenient, like convenient feature and convenient like part of the app, because I personally use my app on everyday basis. Maybe I am the main user of this app. I'm starting my day from reading some articles from my feeds, then reading some books and some other articles, and this app almost replaced all other apps which I'm using. The only one thing which is not ideally implemented, it's support of PDF formats, because PDF, it's a pretty tricky format. It's actually not a textual format, it's a image format. Usually you have a scan of a book inside PDFs, and it's not an easy job to extract the text from the PDF files. And currently I'm working on like next level of a way of processing the PDFs. I decide to move the processing of these files from the device to my server. And on my server, I'm currently implementing like the most modern and innovative way of processing PDFs using optical character recognition, and it's going pretty smoothly. And I believe I can push this update maybe by the end of this month. And after that, as I see, the app will cover probably all formats and all sources of reading, at least and at least for me. And maybe I also have a question for you. Like, maybe does app cover all of your formats which you are using on your daily basis, or should I support some formats which I don't know, which I'm not familiar with, and you can point me to that formats, and probably I can add support for them also.
Nice question. Maybe this explains why I was having difficulty uploading PDFs, and I was actually going to ask you about that, because I think that it actually opened my PDF, but all I could hear was image, 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 or something like that. And I was also kind of thinking that maybe because it was a big book, it's an old book, St. Thomas of Aquinas or something like that. And it was a huge book, and it took it a long time. And, I kind of finally gave up on it, but because all I could hear was image. And so I was thinking, hey, maybe there's a problem here. And it's one of the things that I was going to talk to you about. And I think I updated my review on the Play Store, and from 1 star when I first got it, because it wasn't reading. I wasn't able to access the way to make it use the TTS output as a blind person. And I was kind of perplexed, because as an app that is intended for people to be able to listen to it while you're working on something as well, I thought that you kind of forgot about us blind people, and that's why I reached out to you. Now, tell us, how difficult was it for you to make this app accessible to where someone like me who is blind can finally get to actually use the app to listen to my articles or books and stuff like that? How difficult was it for you to implement that accessibility?
Actually, this is totally true. I didn't put even a small effort to support accessible users, because accessibility is always that stuff which comes with the cost, and especially on Android, it's not a easy thing, not the most easiest API to work with, and most of developers are ignoring this part of users. And yeah, only after your review on the Google Play Store, I realized that I totally forgot about it. And actually, it's not a super big deal to add at least an initial support for the accessible users. And as I remember, I spent maybe 5 or 7 days working after my day job. And it's not the easiest API to work with on Android, but eventually I was able to provide this initial support. And I still have a lot of items in my list of the next steps of supporting and even developing separate features for this group of users. I honestly didn't have a lot of time during last months to address these issues, but also I believe by the end of this month I will have a free time to address all of them. And for today's podcast, I also have a bunch of questions for you regarding my new features. And if you have time to ask it, I would like to get your answers and ideas from you.
So, Stan, tell me something. Wouldn't it have been easier had you started though with accessibility in mind, as to going back retro and trying to fixing these problems? Would it not have been easier had you started with accessibility right away? Because I think this is one of the problems why sometimes it's very hard to kind of retro and go back and add accessibility to these apps, as to starting with accessibility right from the get-go. Do you not think that it would have been easier had you remembered to implement that when you actually started the app?
In my case, I think no, it will not be easier, because when I started my app in 2020, I was developed it in especially for my personal use. I was the main user of the app and the main feature requester for the app. And as I remember, I can afford spending extra time back in 2020 to support accessible features and APIs, because like I was not very confident that my app will grow for this size, and I didn't have a plan to release it to Google Play Store to sell some premium features and so on. And no, for my case, no, this was probably impossible to do it from the very beginning. But right now, I actually see the demand for these features, and I see how the users pay their money, pay their dollars for these features and my app, and I see that I can invest time into developing in supporting accessible users and get the profits from that. And this part is motivating me right now, and it seems like the supporting accessible users, it's not a huge deal to make it after some moment of an app, because you usually don't change a lot in the code when you are supporting accessible APIs. You add some additional properties. Sometimes, you making a little refactoring, but still, this is something that can be added afterwards. And another reason why I only started to do it right now, this reason is you in your community, because I'm not very familiar with this. I'm not accessibility user, and I'm not familiar with the way this group of people using the apps, and without your help and advices and support, that will be much harder to support. And I see I'm a good point to making this support for accessible APIs, and it's much easier when you have a users who can test it, test new version, give its feedback, and this helped me to iterate faster and release much better quality.
Well, thanks for being so responsive and taking the time to sit down and work on it and fix it for us. As you can imagine, we spend a lot of time contacting developers and letting them know their apps are broken, and this is not always the response we get. So I appreciate you taking the time to learn it. And like you mentioned, you can't, because you're a sighted user and you don't use TalkBack, there's no way for you to really test it. So yeah, we'll definitely continue to give you feedback on, if it's improving and how it can continue to improve. But I have a question unrelated to that for you. That so the way I've been using it, it's not for books on my device, but it's just mainly for reading articles, and I'll just use the share sheet to share to Quickify, and it works perfectly for me for that. And I've been looking at all the different voices it offers, and I was curious about something because you support Microsoft voices, and I was wondering, like, I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, that these cloud services like Microsoft and Google charge you to use some of these voices. Is that true or not? Like, as the developer, do you have to pay Microsoft for these voices, or are they free to use?
Now, currently, I'm not paying for the TTS voices at all. These APIs from Microsoft, they are free and publicly available, and we all are very happy people because, yeah, we don't have to pay for these pretty good voices. And
okay,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's good to hear.
But one of my plan is to make my own text generation, voice generation engine. In 2024, we have a huge amount of options and open source solutions to take them and make the own engine, which works on my own server. And I see a lot of benefits from that. I totally can provide the same quality as Microsoft Tech Services provides or Google Tech Services, and also for free, but with additional flexibility and customization. Because the process of generation a voice, you can customize a lot of things during the generation. You can choose emotional context. You can choose the amount of pauses between words or at the end and the beginning of the sentences, and all of that stuff is I believe that this may be pretty useful for the reading from the reading perspective. A lot of my users in the app, they are strive to increase their productivity, increasing reading speed. And I believe there is some receipt of special customization for TTS engines to provide even better experience reading on high speeds.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you're working on implementing that kind of customization because the two TTS engines I use on my phone are Google's TTS and Samsung's TTS. And I really like how Samsung's sounds, but what annoys me the most about it is how long it pauses between sentences and paragraphs. Like, no matter how fast I speed up the actual speech, it still pauses way too long between sentences. So if you're planning on making that kind of customization available to the user, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And you was using Samsung TTS in the Quickify app, and it still have a lot of pauses. Am I right?
I haven't tried it, but I'm 99% sure. Yeah, it would still do it because it's just built into the engine.
What John is saying, and this is something I was also thinking about talking to you about, is the fact that on Android, for those of us who are blind, the number of TTS engines that are locally on our phones have kind of sort of diminished over the years. And frankly, we've been looking for people to develop TTS engines that we could have locally on our phones. But so what John was saying is that he's got a couple locally stored TTS engines on his phones, like most of us do, and those are the Google TTS and the Samsung TTS. And the problem he has with the Samsung TTS is the fact that it tends to be a little bit, pausy, giving pauses between maybe sentences or lines or whatever and things like that. And that's what he's talking about. So frankly, if you would be able to actually take one of these things and harness them to be used as a local TTS locally on one's device, that would be a fresh air that a lot of blind people like myself will be so appreciative of. We'll love to see another TTS come to us on Android. And, of course, this thing take time to do. I know we have one. Someone had placed one on the Play Store called the Natural TTS and it's from Microsoft. He charges 99 cents, and I wouldn't mind seeing someone bringing us a nice TTS engine and charges for it as long as it works, because we even have some that we pay about $6 for, and they're utilizing like Google TTS or Microsoft. So I would love to see that you work on that, and we'll have something to add to our arsenal of TTS engines. So I'm excited about the prospect of having another TTS engine coming to us on the Play Store.
Yeah, but I can say it will be available from the outside of Quickify. Most likely, I will limit only for the Quickify users, because like I'm not sure I can afford like such amount of computation power on my server. But still, I'm like also very excited to go into this direction, because like TTS engines are so rapidly growing and evolving right now, and like every 2 months I see some new solutions on the GitHub or some other resources, and like I trying to find a time to play with them, to test them, and it seems like all of the TTS which we have on Android are a little bit outdated. And yeah, I hope at least in this year I will able to find a time to work on that.
I have a question, actually 2 questions, and they are now 3 because you mentioned the TTS engine thing. So first of all, because you were talking about the TTS engine and the available voices or voice generation services. Okay, so are you talking about the offline TTS engines or the online one? I mean, if we are talking about an online TTS engine, that wouldn't be an ideal solution for the screen reader stuff. So it would be good for an app like Quickify, but not for screen reader stuff. So, or are you talking about the solutions like Piper voices? I think you heard about Piper neural voices that are now available on Windows, for example, for NVDA, but they are not available on Android, and they work offline.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And most likely the first version will work only online, because it's much easier to run this engine on like some specific server with a lot of hardware. And yeah, running voices offline, it's a much harder task. But seems still we will have some evolution in this part, I believe, in this year, maybe next year, not from Quickify maybe, but from other developers, because like we still getting the hardware is still getting faster. Hardware getting like some special chips for this computation type which needed for the TTS generation. Yeah, I also like waiting for this moment when someone will make a good offline sounding TTS. Like for some reason, Google and other big companies like are not very probably successful in this part for some reason. I'm not sure why. Like I remember like how sounds Samsung TTS on my last phone, and that was horrible. And that was also only 2 years ago, and it was sounding like something from the like beginning of the century. I don't know, and I'm not sure why they don't pay like a lot of attention to these technologies.
Yeah,
and probably this is good. This is a good place for third-party players to introduce their solutions and maybe take some money from that, but still have something which sounds very beautiful on local devices.
Yeah, unfortunately, actually, even the traditional players are now leaving Android. So, like Vocalizer, and the problem is that there is now a gap between what is available online and what is utilized offline. So, I think this gap, when it is narrowed and when something is available offline that is both responsive and in the same time that has a good voice good quality voice, this would be, I think, the step forward that we are all waiting for. And now regarding my other question, which is also, actually, I have two questions. I'll ask them together. First of all, you talked about the open source voice generation service that you're going to use with Quickify. Does it support multiple languages? Is it a multilingual voice generation? And the other question is related to Quickify, which is the comparison between the Pro and the free version. So what is available in the Pro version that the free users couldn't get?
Yeah, thanks for your questions. And like regarding the first one about DTS engines, yeah, the goal is to support at least maybe top 10 languages, at least English, Spanish, German, Russian, Polish, and so on. And usually these open source DTS have such supports, not for all languages of the world, but still top 10 should be supported for sure. And regarding another questions of pro features, I am actually currently working on a refactoring of this like premium features functionality in the app. I'm planning to introduce two different monetization plans. One will be called Pro, and another one, more advanced, will be called probably Pro plus AI or something like that. So I want to introduce like one very simple and cheap level of functionality, and another one which are more advanced and like more costly for me, but some users, I believe, will glad to pay this money and get some AI functionality in the app, like summarization, question answering, and something like that. So currently in the Pro, what Pro features Quickify Pro offers? First one is unlimited reading speed. In the free version, the speed is limiting around 200 words per minute, maybe 220 words. And the Pro version have like unlimited power of this reading speed. You can use probably up to 3K words per minute. It's not very useful, but still the app can generate and work that fast. Another feature is folder limit. In the free version, Quickify allows you to create, as I remember, 6 or 8 folders. And if you want more, the Quickify Pro is for you.
I think one of the most important ones that the Pro gives one, and it's what I demonstrated in my demo of the app, is the ability to listen with the phone off. Because for me, as a blind person, if I'm listening to an article or reading a book, I don't need to have my phone left on in order to be able to do that. And it's just not only me who is blind, but let's say you are in the car, you're driving, or you're doing something, cooking food in the kitchen, like the part about the food, or maybe you're in the shower, you got it on the speaker on the counter and listening to books or whatever. I don't need my phone on. And this is where the Pro version comes in, because with the free version, you're not going to be able to use it with your screen shut off. And that's one of the main reasons, one of the big ones for me personally as a blind person, that I think I would push for the Pro because with that, you're able to listen to your stuff without the need of leaving your phone on.
Yeah, exactly. Like personally, I don't very like this limitation. It's not very friendly, but as you said, it's like a very powerful feature to attract users to pay for the Pro version. I'm realizing right now this is like probably the most useful feature from the Pro version. And honestly, I would like to shift this shift this like to some another feature, maybe to some more friendly and more useful. Maybe I will think about it. I wanna also make an announcement regarding the new plan, which I'm going to introduce. The main features of new plan will be interaction with the GPT AI models like ChatGPT or something like that. And I wanna give users ability to utilize this power of big language models to ask some questions, to get summarization, to help with sourcing the reading library, with like generating a text for the articles, for example, to like maybe to calculate an interesting score of an article. Like this is what I personally want to have in Quickify, because I have a lot of RSS feeds in my app, and I'm usually like falling in these numbers of articles which are which I'm getting every day, and I would like to have some assistant which will sort that for me and find the most interesting articles basing on my personal preference.
Talking about articles and all of that, let's touch lightly on the part of RSS feeds. I know RSS feeds are kind of going the way of the dodo, but then, still, they're still being used. And Quickify supports those RSS feeds. Would you want to talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I implemented the RSS feeds not so long ago. I made first release of this feature back to December of 2023, so around half a year ago. And this, once again, this was the feature which I want in first place. And yeah, I was waiting for a moment when I will have a time to implement it. And actually, I really like how I built Quickify from the very beginning, because adding support for RSS feeds was super easy stuff. I already had folders. I already had logic to work with a big amount of documents, and supporting RSS feeds was like connecting some plugin into Quickify app, and yeah, this works very good. And I'm also thinking about supporting different formats of feeds. For example, the feed from Twitter, feed from maybe Instagram, Facebook, something like that. I will try to experiment with that to gather like feeds from my social media, maybe even from some video applications like YouTube, some podcast applications, and maybe it will be very convenient to have not only textual format inside the app, but also the visual format, the audio format like podcasts, and something like that.
It does have a lot of potential there when one looks at it. Like I said, it's an app that's an inclusive app. In other words, it's an app that one could be using for a lot of things. And really, you're taking a lot of time to do this. And I'm particularly excited about it, and more so, especially about the TTS that we talked about earlier. I'm looking forward to a time in point where you will actually have a TTS engine. And I can proudly say we got a TTS engine from Stan Kruglik, and something that my friends will also be excited about. So we're looking forward to one of these things. And frankly, talking about the RSS feeds and all of that, would it be easy for you to maybe sometime down the line, maybe integrate our Bookshare? Those of us who are blind, we utilize Bookshare. Some of us get books from Bookshare, and it'll be just nice to be able to access my Bookshare books from within Quickify, and versus say, hey, I want to go to the Bookshare website or use the Bookshare reader. Of course, it's there, but the more tools we have, the better it is for us, because we have choice as to which one to use, most especially when one misbehaves, that one has the ability to turn to the other. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that's a possibility. I know we do have some apps that have that capability, and it may not be too hard for you to do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I also like this idea. I think this should be like a pretty affordable feature to implement inside the Quickify app. I also had some such ideas regarding other sites with books, and maybe even some third-party services which would like to become a partner of Quickify and provide their books directly to Quickify app. And I definitely will take a look into this Bookshare website. I actually have a little idea how to make it, and yeah, will try to do my best.
And while you're at it, you might as well look at the Gutenberg site as well, because some of us like the classics and all of that, and so one could easily get a book there, because some of those apps that are dedicated for those things don't often work well. And knowing that Quickify works well, it wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of link it to where people could get free books from, say, Gutenberg.
Yeah, sounds very nice. Yeah, we'll definitely make a try to do it.
So I have 2-3 points. One is, I think, about the development of local TTS. I don't think it will take a lot of computation power on the server, because the app will be on the Play Store and all your server needs to host is the voice data. So it will take a lot of downloads from the server, because once the user installs the app, they have to download the voice data. Another question I was coming to was the AI question that you answered in your premium plan, the new plan. You can talk about it a little more. And the third question or feature request is, maybe in the pro plan or the professional, the premium plan, can there be an audio player for podcasts, since you are supporting RSS feed for podcasts? So can there be an audio player that supports chapter markers?
Yeah, definitely. If the term of use of these podcast services will allow me to host this podcast inside the app, I will definitely do it. I also like this idea. I also the podcast user, podcast listener, and yeah, personally, I also want to have that inside the app. And like regarding the AI question, like the idea to make an interface of interaction with these large language models, there are a lot of providers that which gives you access to that models. Like the most familiar one is OpenAI with their chat GPT models. There's also another players which providing this these models with a different set of features. And yeah, I have a working prototype on my phone, and I am playing with it every day, and I definitely see a lot of potential of using LLM models for the reading, for the note taking, and for some other stuff. And I also have a questions for you, which related to this AI stuff. What do you think? Would it be useful for you to have a voice input in the app? For example, you can perform some actions using your voice, like open me this article which I read yesterday, or like find me something to read from the feed from the last week, and so on. Like, what do you think is voice input will be useful for you?
Yeah, it will absolutely be useful, not only for visually challenged people, but people with other disabilities. And now, as Chat GPT started supporting voice chats, we can do voice input, which will be very useful. I use ChatGPT a lot to tag our YouTube videos and all those.
I think it would be a good idea, really, to have that because the whole idea, when I'm looking at these things, I'm talking about or looking at the ability to do a hands-free thing. And this is why the voice input comes in handy, because I don't need to go find a button and tap on it to do this and that. Instead, I could just say, hey, tap on one button and say, do X, Y, Z, and it's there, right there, and it does it for me. So it's a good idea. If something like that is doable, I'll say go for it, because it's not only going to be useful to just us, the blind people, like Austin says, but this is something that could be useful to a lot of people, regardless whether they have disabilities or not. And some people that have other disabilities will also find this as a very handy tool. So yeah, it will be good to have that implemented when you get to it.
And not only tapping the button, I think if it's possible, I don't know if it's possible, we can say things like, okay, Quickify, find so and so thing to read. Then that will be very nice, especially the pro or the premium plan where the phone is unlocked and on a counter and we are doing other things.
Yeah, I see. And also probably it would be very useful to ask some questions on the go regarding the content you are reading. Like, for example, you are reading some fiction book and you have a character with the name you don't remember, and you can ask, like, who is that? When this character was first introduced, and so on. And like in my imagination, the Quickify will able to give you an answer in the moment regarding this, because like Quickify knows it has the whole content of a book you are reading right now. It knows like the exact point inside the book which are you reading right now, like the exact paragraph. And yeah, I see a lot of potential also in this feature, and yeah, we'll try to make some experiments with that. Probably I will post. I want to start to beta testing my features inside the Quickify community. I will make a separate build with new features, like to test them, to get the feedback. And maybe this AI feature will be the first one which I will roll out on the testing channel.
So is there a Quickify community and how does the user join them?
Yeah, we have several community places. First one in Telegram, second one in Discord, third one, a small one in Twitter, and another one on reddit.com.
I have one more comment regarding the AI. You may already be planning this or something similar, but what we use these AI models for, meaning like ChatGPT, Gemini, what they're really good at for us is describing photos. And I think it would be great if, like, say you're reading a PDF that has photos in it, if you could just have the AI, if you're on the premium subscription, have it automatically describe kind of like the short version of the description, but then you could stop it and say, can you give me a more specific description of that photo? And then it could give you a little bit more details, describe it to you in words.
Yeah, it's amazing feature. Yeah, it will be a killer feature of Quickify, and yeah, definitely awesome. Maybe in the first or another version of Quickify, yeah, I will do that.
Sounds great.
So like what John wants to say is that, let's say the PDF is a book and the book has the photo of a person looking out of the window, then the AI says that this person is looking out of the window, and you can like stop it and ask for more description. That is what John means by that comment.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, understand it. Yeah, I will try to make some good user flow for that, to not pause the main reading, but still have an ability to get a description of an image,
or maybe have it be a setting that you, as the user, you could just say, I'm a blind user, so always describe images with more detail. Something
Yeah,
like that
yep.
would be nice.
Yep. It's a great idea.
You know, you guys are talking about very important issues here because I'm looking at me listening to a book or something like that. I've been reading a lot, especially some of the old books, historical stuff. I just finished a book about Erasmus and Luther yesterday. And, you know, a lot of those are European, German, and Dutch names and things like that. It would be nice to employ that power of the AI. For example, let's say I'm reading and, you know, Stan's name is in there, Kruglik, and I could say, spell that word Kruglik, and it'll just spell it for me. So I can see the potential of this implementation, as it will make things easier for me because I don't have to stop the read out loud and then go try to find a line that contains that word and try to find what the spelling is. So I can see a lot of potential in here, most especially when this thing gets implemented. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I also getting more excited about it because I see how this will change the way of reading, even for the like visual people and for the people with visual impairment.
Well, Stan, thank you so much for taking your time to come on and talk about Quickify. We're so excited about it. I know for sure that I am excited about the app. And ever since I got it, I've read like 15 books, believe it or not. And so how do people get hold of you, or should people just contact you via the email address that is found on the Play page? Or is there another way of which people can get hold of you?
Yeah, the email address from the Google Play page is like the most faster way to get into contact with me. The email is contact@quickify.com. And also you can join our community inside Telegram channels, inside Discord, Twitter, and Reddit.
Thank you so much for coming on. And before you go, tell me, when something big comes on, like this AI stuff that we talked about and all of that, would you be willing to come back again and talk with us? Because you would like, you know, follow-ups and things like that. Would you be willing to come back and talk with us once you've done some other implementations into the app?
Yeah, for sure I will come another time. Yeah, it's a good place to share my ideas, to get a feedback. And yes, thanks for having me here. This is my first experience in the role of developer of Quickify, and I would like to continue to go in this direction.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
It was nice meeting you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, nice to meet you all.